G'day, and how are you going today? How's it going with those that you love the very most? Look, if you're living in New Zealand, you're just so fortunate at this particular moment, and the reason is because the Kiwis have drawn the first two games in the Great Soccer Series. Now, of course, it'll all be over by the time you see this on TV, but it's just the most marvellous memory. Today, we're looking at the power of prayer, and I've got a question I'd like to ask all good, loyal Kiwis, and the question is this: should the National Government of New Zealand legislate that all people of faith should pray for the success of New Zealand in the upcoming World Cup series? It's not a bad idea when you think about it, or is it? Well, on a serious side, we're actually exploring this topic today in our series on the book of Daniel. We began with Daniel 1 and discovered that Daniel in crisis gained great power to cope because he looked after his health and he also maintained his faith in God. Daniel 2, he found a reason for hope. Daniel chapter 3, beliefs do matter. Daniel chapter 4, we discovered that it's possible for anybody to change and how you can ask God's help to make a change for the positive last forever. Last week looked at how that God does not force himself on us humans. He waits for us to ask, and here's the essential question. If we're going to ask God for help, and if prayer works, which is the process of asking God for help, then surely it would make sense for the governments of the day to make legislation encouraging at least people of faith to pray. This is a real question happening right now in the United States of America. The Gulf oil spill has just caused endless havoc in the Gulf of Mexico. The state of Louisiana has legislated, or the legislators have invited people of all various faiths to pray and ask God to help solve the crisis. It sounds like a wonderful and fantastic thing, but is it really? You know, God helps us in the small, everyday events of life, and I discovered this even again last week when we interviewed Heather Naomi, a cement trucker. Now, Heather, 5 years ago, tell us what happened to you.
I was minding my own business along Coronation Drive in Brisbane, and got rear-ended by a big fully loaded cement truck doing 60 kilometres an hour, smack into the back of my car.
What was the effect on you?
Shock, injuries to my neck, my back, and I banged my head, which was not diagnosed as a minor head injury. And it was just really hard, James. I got to the point where I couldn't live life as I was used to, and I just packed up my things and put them in storage and thought, oh, I'll come home to mother for 3 months, and that turned into 3 years, and I was just so ill and just struggling. I felt like I was, you know, walking through thick mud in gumboots and getting nowhere. I just wasn't achieving.
Yeah, because it wasn't just bones that were broken, it was.
Well, it wasn't.
It affected your brain as well.
It actually wasn't broken bones. There was a lot of joint issues and muscle issues. But yeah, the bang in the head really did give me a minor brain injury. But when they finally tested me, because you know I can talk okay, they didn't test my thinking power, my logic,
so
and my maths.
It affected your thinking slightly.
Yeah.
Now, you asked for prayer a while ago. Tell us what happened.
I did. It just got to the point where I wasn't moving forward, even though I was doing all I could. So, you know, Benjamin and Marie that have been on your show.
Oh, yeah, a pastor in a church.
Yes, yeah, and the assistant pastor. I asked them to come round, and there's in James 5 in the Bible, it talks about being anointed for healing.
Sure.
And so it's just a little quiet service. They came to my home. They prayed for me. I had written the Lord a list of my injuries that I felt I was still suffering from. I mean, I still
So they prayed and they anointed you. What's that?
That means that they put their hands on me, a hand each, and they prayed for the healing for these things, because sometimes I still wear a soft collar and I just couldn't think well enough. And then when that was over, Benjamin just anointed my forehead, which means he just put some symbolic olive oil and just put that on my forehead.
Oh, that's what the Bible says.
Yes, just
so
to anoint.
Now, is Benjamin one of those superstar prayer warrior televangelists?
Well, he's not well, he's on your show, so I don't know. But no, he's not one of these big, high-powered super people. But he's a man of prayer. He's a man of faith. And I had friends that I love and trust, and they were praying for healing as well.
Okay, so if somebody's like yourself, they've had an injury, and they'd like to ask somebody to pray for them, what would you suggest?
I'd definitely say to ask those you know who pray to pray for you. And you can pray yourself.
It could be the pastor at the Anglican church, it could be your neighbour, it could be...
They could write into you, James, and we could pray for them here. But the thing is that they could even ask themselves, even if they're not sure, they can pray, if you're there, God, reveal yourself to me, please heal me.
So very briefly, tell us, the last 5 weeks, life's improved for you.
Oh, amazing. Yes, I could feel the healing. Benjamin could just sort of feel this power surge through his arm as he was touching me, and
But what's
I
happened
can
to you?
think clearly. I'm getting back into doing what I wanted to do. I'm making decisions, taking action that I couldn't understand why I wasn't moving forward. Now I'm moving forward.
Okay.
It's just been the most amazing thing to know that God has touched me in that special way.
You know, it is true that there's been thousands, indeed millions of people around the globe over the past 2,000 years who have testified to the power of communicating with God. That's what prayer is. And they've gained great personal benefit by communicating with God. Now, prayer does work. It's talking to God, it's asking for help as you would a friend, and to think of the millions of people who've said to God, please could you help me in this or thus, and they have stories about how God answered their prayer.